Look at the sixth Sunday, which is February 11th, Super Bowl Sunday weekend. I know this year we're in the Gospel of Mark. Right now we're going through chapter 1, verse 40-45. A leper came to Jesus, kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched him and said to him, "I do will it, be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go show yourself to the priest and offer your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That would be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. Short gospel, the leper. Now, during Jesus' time, there was probably no disease regarded with more terror and pity than leprosy. When Jesus sent out the 12, right, he commanded them, heal the sick, cleanse lepers. He specifically mentioned leprosy. The fate of a leper was truly hard, because no other disease reduces a human being for so many years to such a hideous wreck. The true leprosy destroys your skin, you lose your limbs, but also probably the other terrible part of it is that you're ostracized from society. So you're ignored on the outside. So physically you're ill, and then even socially, mentally, it's very painful. But there are three kinds of leprosy at the time of Jesus. There is a nodular or tubercular leprosy. It begins with unaccountable lethargy and pains in your joints. And then there appears on the body, especially on the back, the symmetrical discolored patches. On them, little nodules form at first pink, then turning brown. The skin is thickened. The nodules gather especially in the folds of the cheek, or the nose, the lips, and the forehead. And the whole appearance of the face is changed, so the man loses his human appearance and looks, as the ancient says, like a lion or some sort of beast. You may have seen pictures of lepers, the big, like swelling and bubble and disfigured. It's hard to look at. It's hard to look at. And that those nodules grow larger and larger, then they ulcerate, and from them comes a foul discharge. So you're difficult to look at, but now there's a stench coming from your body. The eyebrows fall out. The eyes become staring. The voice becomes hoarse, and the breath wheezes because of the ulceration of the vocal cords. The hands and the feet are also ulcerate, and slowly the sufferer becomes a mass of ulcerated growths. The average course of disease is now 9 years and ends in mental decay, coma, and ultimately death. The sufferer becomes utterly repulsive both to himself and to others. And there's another type too of this leprosy. It's anesthetic leprosy. The initial stages are the same as we just heard about the nodular, but the nerve trunks are also affected. The infected area loses all sensation, and this may happen without the sufferer knowing that it has happened, and they may not realize that it has happened until the sufferer some burning or scalding and finds there's no feeling where pain ought to be. So once that happens, you can put a match to somebody, you can stick your hand in the fire, and you feel no pain. But unfortunately, the effects of the fire still takes hold. So you can be burnt to death or lose it, Muscles waste away, the tendons contract until the hands become like claws. There's always a disfigurement of the fingernails. There ensues a chronic ulceration of the feet and the hands, and the progressive loss of fingers and of toes, until the end, a hand or whole foot may just drop off. And the duration of this disease is anything from 20 to 30 years. It's a terrible progressive death of the body. Can you imagine living that way, that little by little you suffer? I think all of us don't want to suffer, but say if I have to suffer, maybe quick, but to drag it out for 20 to 30 years and slowly, things get worse and worse. And now the third type of leprosy is sort of the commonest of all, though, where nodular and anesthetic leprosy are mixed. This leprosy proper, there is no doubt there were many lepers like that in Palestine, this one here. It's quite clear that in New Testament times, the term leprosy was also used to cover any skin disease. So anything, not the serious thing, but just these last two that we heard. It seems to have been used to include psoriasis, a disease which covers the body with white scales, which could give rise to a phrase, the leper as white as snow. It also could include ringworm, which was very common in the East. Very naturally, the medical knowledge in an extremely primitive state, diagnosis did not distinguish between the different kinds of skin diseases, and therefore any sort of skin disease, take no chances, whether it was but with a deadly, incurable, and the non-fatal one. They're all lumped together. Any skin disease rendered the sufferer unclean. So yeah, I think you can have acne and you'd be unclean, right? He was banished from the fellowship of men. He must dwell outside the camp. He must go with clothes torn, bared head, covering upon his upper lip. And as he went, he must be warning of his polluted presence with a cry of, unclean, unclean. Wow. That's your life. That's how you identify yourself. Unclean, unclean. Actually, you see the same things in the Middle Ages, which merely just apply the Mosaic law. In fact, back in the Middle Ages, the priest wearing his stole and carrying a crucifix led the leper into the church, read the burial service over him, and the leper was a man who was already dead. He's the living dead. He had to wear a black garment that all might recognize and live in a leper or leper house. He must not come into the church service, but while the service went on, he might peer through the upper, through the leper squint cut in the wall. So you see outside, look, the little crack in the wall, and peek inside. The leper had not only had to bear the physical pain of his disease, he had to bear the mental anguish and the heartbreaking of being completely banished from human society and totally shunned. So now take this all into consideration, and the leper comes up to Jesus. And what do you think Jesus would do? He's unclean. But thank God Jesus, perhaps move the pity, move the compassion. Now, Jesus could have just healed him from a distance, as Jesus has, miracles, right? We see the healing, that he didn't have to be physically in contact with the individual. But Jesus deliberately, intentionally, he touches the leper, which no one would do, and he heals him. And what that touch does, though, is that he's not only healing physically, but socially, emotionally, that there's human contact, right? That you feel the touch of another person. And so by right, Jesus became unclean because he touched him, but Jesus is above that. So great as the healing is, what's even, perhaps in some level, a greater value that he touched him, he accepted him. In some ways that we are all lepers in our own way, we feel unclean, maybe some areas in our life, maybe things we've done in the past, the future, things that we kind of bury, keep private. But Jesus doesn't see it as unclean. He wishes to touch us, to bless us, to heal us. So receive this blessing, receive his healing. But also at the same time, may the Lord move your heart to have pity for others. All right? Be careful judging others. Just have your heart moved with pity. You don't know why they are in the situation that they are. So greet people, be kind and friendly to all people. Make them feel part of our society, part of us. God bless you.